I'm Shannon Thrasher, and this is 30-Second Tactics. Today we're going to talk about the advancement, if any, in handgun technology over the last about 30 years. Specifically, duty handguns. To do this, we're going to use a Beretta 92 FS, the first gun I ever carried on duty back in 1992, and a Glock 21 45 caliber that I carry today. So, what are the big differences, and have we made any great technological advances? Well, the biggest differences you're going to see in these two particular guns, and of course I know there's a lot more guns out there, a lot more options, but like I said, these are ones I carried, so that's why I'm working with these. The first thing you're looking at, this is a steel over an alloy frame, where the Glock is going to be steel over a polymer frame. If you don't like those words, you can say aluminum and plastic, nobody cares. Mechanically, the big difference on this gun is this is going to be a double action, single action, and for those that may not know what that means, show that that's definitely a clear and safe weapon. Is in a double action, it will do two different actions, two different firing methods. The first one, which is considered double action, is where the hammer is down, the gun it will not fire, and when you pull the trigger, you do two things. You cock the hammer and you fire it. Now after you fire the first round, the hammer will stay back, and now it's transitioned to single action. Back when this gun was popular, and this gun was adopted by the Army in 1985, and soon afterwards every police department in the country seemed like they just had to have them. LAPD was one of the first major departments to switch to them. This was definitely top of the line, you were cool, space age, best stuff you could have in the late 80s, early 90s. And then the single action, of course, you just pull the trigger. Now you would normally carry a double action weapon like this cocked, so if you'd fired a little or cocked it or loaded it or whatever and you need to drop the hammer, most guns of that era, including the Beretta, had a decocking safety. So you can see the red, it's on fire. When you put it on safe, it also safely decocks the hammer. So now when it's on safe, the trigger's disabled, it won't do anything. Some people carried it like that, and some people said, well, this is a really heavy first trigger pull, so we can just carry it like that, and the safety is the fact that that's a very long trigger. This is a very different system than what's very popular today with the striker fired guns, which are kind of in a class of their own, but I consider them to be single action. You pull the trigger, it fires. The gun's already cocked for all intents and purposes. The striker fire doesn't really fall into single action, double action, but it's much more close to the single action. Physically, the big difference between guns of that era and guns of today is you'll notice there's no light rail on this gun. That just wasn't a thing in the late 80s, early 90s. It slowly became a thing, and nowadays it's probably more rare to see a law enforcement officer on duty without a light on his gun than it is to see with a light on his gun. One thing, like I said, these were very beloved in the late 80s, early 90s, but one thing that did become kind of an urban legend was this is the takedown. What you do is push this button here and rotate this lever down, and what that would do is disconnect the slide, comes right off the end. Now there was rumors and there was urban legends. I never heard of an actual case where when you did this someone could grab your gun, push this, and slide that down and disable your gun. Now that's a whole other video on why in the world are you letting someone grab your gun. That's a deadly force encounter that needs to be answered with several trigger pulls, in my opinion. But if you look real close at this gun, you'll see, and you compare it to an out-of-the-box Beretta, that this little knob has been ground down flat. I did that myself because back in the day, I believe the urban legends myself, and you can still do it, you just need a little more fingernail to do it now than you could before. But normally this is going to be a little rounded section very similar to this right here. So, this is what I carry today. Now, the Beretta is a 9mm and this is a 45, but that is what it is. Obviously this gun's also available in 9mm configurations. The biggest difference you're going to see today with cop guns, a lot of them are going to have a light on them like I talked about. Ever since, I want to say, 1991, the Gen 3 Glocks, and I might be wrong on that exact date, started putting the light rails on them. Glock is pretty much the reason weapon-mounted lights became a thing. They were the most popular gun at the time, and they put the light rail on there, and then that spurned a whole business of weapon-mounted lights. Before that, you would very rarely see them. Sometimes canine units would have them because they had to have one hand on the leash and one hand on the gun, and that didn't leave a hand for their flashlight. But back then, that was like a regular handheld light that had a special customized clamped-on kind of a thing. Now, of course, they're very common. And this also has a red dot sight on it. As far as weight, let's see if we've made any huge progress in the weight of firearms in the last 30 years. Okay, this Beretta, which came standard with a excuse me, get my scale working right, came standard with a 15 round magazine, so we'll weigh it as it would have been carried. 2 pounds 8 ounces. So again, no flashlight, no red dot sight. 2 pounds 8 ounces. Not a super heavy gun, because like I said, it is an alloy frame. And now the Glock, again with the light and the sight, red dot sight, and a loaded 13 round magazine. 2 pounds 11.2 ounces. So a tiny bit more weight, but again, this is a, not really comparing apples to apples here. The 45 ammo weighs more, and several other things going on. And get this reset. There we go. So just to make more of a direct comparison, this is a Glock 17 and 9mm, Gen 5, most modern version they have, and it's 1 pound 15.8 ounces. So several ounces lighter than the exact comparison. But again, I'm using these two guns because this is what I carried. So, other than the fact that we've kind of gone away as an industry and a nation, we've kind of gotten away from the double action, single action, and we've gone into striker fire. Are there really any great achievements over the last 30 years? If I had to carry this gun tomorrow on duty and it had a light rail on it, I probably wouldn't even notice the difference. Some smaller changes, again, just reacting to the industry and what people wanted. You'll notice on the Beretta, it's a dovetail rear sight, but the front sight is just part of the frame. So if you got one of these, if it had standard sights, you had standard sights. If it had night sights, you had night sights. If they wore out, you had wore out night sights. It was pretty much impossible to change this. Now on later models, they've done away with that and updated some things. The current Berettas have rails on them and everything, but again, we're not dealing with current Berettas, dealing with what I had back then versus what I have now. And of course the Glocks, it's real easy to switch sights out. There's a million versions out there. So in summary, I'm going to say there hasn't been any huge improvements. This is a good gun. This is a good gun. If I had to choose, I'd say this is a better gun. It's a little more durable. It's got a lot of other things going on it. But I'm definitely not hating on the Beretta, and I'm definitely not hating on 30-year-old technology when it comes to handguns. So I hope you enjoyed that, guys. If you did, do me a favor, hit the like, hit the share, hit the subscribe, tell your friends about it. Get down in the comments and tell me what you'd like to see next. Thanks, guys.